Okay, this is the Austin Adobe Users Group meeting, and we do it on the second Thursday of every month. Next month, though, August, we are not doing it, taking a summer break, and we'll pick back up in September on the 14th, and Cornelius will do a demo on generative fill in Photoshop, which is awesome, and we'll all love that. So I'm just going to go ahead and start sharing my screen and jump right into it. I'm just going over this meeting. I'm going to go over a whole bunch of tools and specifically keyframing and a couple of things in Premiere Pro. And we'll build a little social media. I downloaded some clips from Adobe stock and we'll just use those. So I'm going to share my screen and just sort of jump right in. And let's see here. Are you guys seeing my screen?
Yes, we are. You're sharing it fine through Zoom.
Okay, good.
Zoom.
I can hear you, but I'm having some problems, but go ahead.
Okay. So I'm not going to go through the process of opening Premiere. I opened up a project in Premiere. And so I'm just going to talk through a couple of things. You know, all these Adobe programs, they really, in a few ways, they work very similar. Although some of us that know a few of them sometimes are frustrated because the keyboard shortcuts don't seem to match when they should. Let me turn that off. So really what it is all the displays for all the Adobe programs are just a layout of these panels, and you can modify these panels by dragging in, going in between the seams and all that kind of stuff. And I look at, if I click on window, and by the way, I work in both PCs and Macs. I do all my heavy lifting when I do my work on a PC, and I teach all the time from a Mac. And my thing is, it doesn't matter. They're both computers. They're both awesome. It's whatever ones you're used to. And I hate them both and I love them both. So it doesn't really matter. When you're in these Adobe tools, they're so similar, it doesn't really matter other than control and command keys, a couple of things like that. It's the same. My only issue is I wish they made, you know, Adobe doesn't release anything in Linux, which some of the higher end tools for compositing and things are all Linux based. Anyway.
So is GIMP, isn't it?
Sorry?
So is GIMP. That's an Adobe free, an Adobe lookalike kind of product.
Oh, I don't even know that one. Oh, okay. So what I do is I open up a template project. So I have these bins in my project file. You know, these editors, it doesn't matter if it's Final Cut or Avid or Premiere or Sony Vegas. They all sort of work the same terminology, same layout. So I'm going to show a few things in here, specifically keyframes and some animation and how we can use that to make sort of a social media piece. So what I have here, these are my bins and my project layout. And when you first open up Premiere, if you go to the editing workspace, which is just a layout of these certain panels, all these panels with a little check mark are the ones that are opened. Like if I wanted to look at Lumenbrite color panel, I would click on that and it opens it up over here. I don't want to open up all, so I'm just going to close the panel. So now this is the default editing workspace. I don't work in this, so I'm going to jump out of it. But I teach in this all the time because this is sort of the default editing workspace. And I would recommend, if you're going to become, and you will want this, if you're going to start editing more and more in Premiere, you're going to want to make a layout that is useful for you. Or, you know, mine sort of emulates, I'm going to go get it right now. Mine sort of emulates After Effects a little bit. I have my project panel and assets up here in the upper left, and that gives me the whole bottom for the timeline. And then I put effects controls over here next to my program monitor. So when I'm adjusting some parameter, I can see it and I don't have to take my mouse or cursor too far away. So
John, may I interrupt you with a couple of questions?
Sure.
About presentation. Sherry in the chat room asked if there was any way to make the GUI interface of text larger. We can see it, but it's like, it looks like 6-point font to me. It's very small.
Wow.
And then the I'm sorry, that's the main question. And the other thing is, you're talking about moving windows around. Could you demonstrate that a little bit more slowly and clearly for
Sure.
people who don't know how to rearrange their
Sure.
desktop?
Sure. I don't know how to make the text bigger.
Okay.
Yeah, I
If
don't
you
think you
do-
can do that on a Mac. We've had issues with that in the
Mhm.
past. But you
Yeah.
can make the cursor bigger.
Okay,
The
so
cursor's okay.
these panels here, refer to as like there's source, program, which was going to tie into the timeline. So whatever's in the timeline, wherever your cursor playhead is in the timeline, it's going to show up in this program panel. And then this project panel, the names of them are all on the left, right? And so project, and it showed me which project it is. So any of these panels, if I wanted to move them somewhere else, for example, maybe I want my project panel to be over here next to my program monitor. I can click and drag it by the title. And as I'm dragging it, these little purple things, I'm still holding down the mouse, the little purple windows show up. So if I drag it up here, it's going to put it on top of the program monitor. If I drag it to the center, it's going to add it and then make a panel group. That's where I'm going to put it. I'm just going to let go here. So now I have my project panel and my program monitor in the same panel group. And I can also drag it out of there and I can take it wherever. And I can do that with any of these panels. I can hover over the seam. I can drag the name and reposition where it lives. Maybe this one lives down here now. I can screw this whole thing up really now. Oh, I don't want any of that. What if I
Does
want to?
Control Z undo what you just did?
Yeah, no. You can't control, you can't undo panel movements. Control or Command Z doesn't do.
You could do workspace though, right? So you could just go use your default. You have a default workspace.
Well, that's what I'm going through all that right now. So I'm getting there. So yeah, you can't Control Z panel and there's also switches. A lot of times switches in Adobe, you can't Control Z and undo most of your actions. But over here in this workspace area right here, this is the workspace I'm on, J edit. But if I click on this workspace icon, and then down here towards the bottom is reset the saved layout. So reset, I'm just going to click that, and that's going to take me back to my setup in my J edit. So the way I made that was I started with editing workspace like this, and I moved it the way I like it. I'm just pretending here. I'm not going to do a whole bunch of stuff. So let's just say I don't want these open, and I'm just clicking on the little hamburger menu so I can close them, and maybe I want effects up here. I'm just pretending, and I don't need this one or this one. Close panel. Let's say, okay, that's beautiful. I love this. I want this to be my hero workspace or layout of panels that I'm going to work with. So I'd go back to this workspace icon and click on it. And then down at the bottom, I can also say save as new workspace. So I could click on that, and this new workspace called AAUG test, just give it a name, and I'll say okay. And now you see the name that showed up here. And if I click on the drop down, these are all my workspaces. There's one down here now called AAUG, AA users group test, which is this layout that we just made. To make it be at the top, because I wish, let's say I'm going to use this all the time now. I wish it was at the top. So I can just go to edit workspaces. And thanks for helping me with that, because I'm not looking at the chat while I do this stuff. So if she asks any more questions, please do what you did. Edit workspace. And I get this edit workspace sort of dialog window, and I can take that one that we just made and just basically drag it to the top. So now that's going to be at the top. I'll say okay. And so over here, it's showing me that one. And if I click on the workspaces icon drop down, there it is at the top. You can also change the way, I'm going to get out of this in a second. You can also say things like show workspace tabs, which over here now it's going to show me all these tabs in here of these different workspaces I could select.
Oh,
But
those are the default ones that Adobe's created?
both the default ones and ones I've customized and created.
Could you verbalize a few of the default ones? They're just so hard to see on your screen.
Yeah, so, and I typically don't do it like this because, look, when I'm working, when I'm creative, I don't want to see anything. I don't want to see numbers or labels or digits of anything I'm not working with. You know, I don't look at the map while I'm driving. You know, I'll go look at the map and then I'll go drive. Well, now maybe that's not, maybe that's defying my age. I remember driving places when we didn't have, you know, our navigation screen in front of
Right,
us.
I remember the maps.
I'm going back to this. Some kid told me, one of my son's friends is like, yeah, don't you remember we'd put it in a MapQuest and then print it out and then take that with us. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that.
I remember that. They bring back memories, bad memories.
I'm just going to turn this off, show workspace tab. It's just because
Megan here with another Mondays with Megan text.
Sorry if that interrupted you.
Oh, okay. So I'm going back to my edit workspaces because that's my layout that I use. Even though it's on a smaller screen, my real workflow is on a wider than 16:9 screen. So it's a little bit crunched on here, but so one thing I did was earlier, I brought in some footage from Adobe stock and some light leaks. So I'm just going to go through editing something and then building sort of a social media looking graphic over it. So the first thing you need in Premiere, of course, is a timeline. You can't, until you have a edit sequence, you don't have anything to look at. So I'm going to make a new sequence right now. Actually, one way you can do it, or that I like to do it in, because there's always file, new, and you can go choose all these things and all that. I'm not one to come up here and use these because I know all the keyboard shortcuts. But so this is the proper way to go: file, new, sequence. Or you can see also it's Control or Command N. Or if I right click in the project panel, I can also go to new item and I can have a new sequence or adjustment layer or bars and tone or color match. This would be the way I'll get any pieces. So we're going to make a new sequence. And what that does is it calls up a sequence preset dialog box. I mean, we can go here and choose our settings. And we'll do that. We're just going to say it's going to be 1920 by 1080. It's going to be 2997. Actually, I think some of this, I'm going to go look at and see what some of the footage is here. Let me just show this. So when I look at footage here, I'm going to double click on this bin, stock footage. And that opens up another bin called stock footage. So I have my project panel and my footage bin, and inside there I have a bin of stock footage. That word bin, all the editing programs use that word bin. Bin and clips, which are really holdovers from film, because in the old days, that's what you had.
Celluloid.
You had a strip of film that you clipped out. Here's my shot, and I stored in a metal bin. There's all my close-up clips in my bin. So all the terms are left over from physical things, sort of the same way that all the terms in aviation, half of them are from maritime. You know, they just took the anyway. So with this, I like to work in list mode here because I have so many files and things. But now when I double clicked on this stock footage bin, it made it opened up here. And here I might want to look at it in icon view, but there I can see my footage. And I can even, if I scrub over it or just hover over it, I can see it moving.
Wow.
And you can actually on these make ins and out points right here. So that's what I'm going to do. This is going to be, you know, there's like 3 or 4 ways to edit. And depending on what you're doing, you might pick a different way to edit. I'm going to call this storyboard editing because I'm just going to edit from this footage by looking at it versus, you know, watching an interview. Where do I need to cut out the words and all that, which might be a different thing. Also in this view, I could like I need to want to see this better so I can pick ins and outs better. I'm going to double click on it and it'll show up in the source panel. So now I'm looking at that shot I was just looking at here a little bigger, and I can see there's an in and out on it already that I put in earlier today, which is just over here, it's a second and 20 frames. So when I can see these, there's an in and out on here as well. I can see it because of the little blue bar that's there. That might be hard to see. If I zoom in, like I'm zooming in on my screen, is that showing up on Zoom?
I could see it faintly.
I mean, I just zoomed way in, so this shot like fills the. Do you see me zooming?
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not seeing the Zoom.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Where would it be? Is it the big image in the middle that's zooming, or the little
No,
one on the left?
my whole screen.
Ah,
So it goes out of the HDMI, but it apparently doesn't go to Zoom. Okay, that's fine. So what I'm going to do is these shots. When I look at them, they already have ins and outs in them. So I'm going to say maybe this one needs to be, I'll speed that one up. Over here, it's showing me the ins and outs, how what the duration is between those ins and outs.
so they're not. It's hard to see. Are there numbers, minutes, and seconds, or seconds and
Yeah,
milliseconds?
it's seconds and frames.
Uh-huh.
So here's the interesting thing you can do in here. I can select these, like I'm going to say this is my first shot, and I'm going to hold down Command or Control, and I'll say this is my second shot, and this is my third shot, and fourth shot. Then I'll end on this shot. So just 5
So
shots.
it's remembering the sequence with which you make your selections.
Yeah, exactly. So now I'm
Wow.
going to click and drag one of those down to my timeline. Oh, I haven't made a sequence yet. That's okay. We'll go ahead and do it. You can do that as well. This is going to make a timeline based on the settings from this first shot. So I'm going to just drag that down to create a timeline. See the little plus sign by the fist, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So there, that dropped those 5 shots with their ins and outs into my timeline. So now I have, let me just move these back over here. Now I have this edit. And if I play it, you can just see what happens. We're gonna shorten these up so it's not so long. We'll make every shot about 2 seconds probably, because this is supposed to emulate sort of social media, and there's audio there, and I can see this shot doesn't fill up. So here's what I want to do. I want to go and, you know, if I look on any of these shots here, and I know we started with this one, which is this shot right here. Whoops, sorry. Which is this shot right here. And when I click on this shot up here, it shows me how big it is and what frame rate it's running at and what the duration is and all those things. So it made my sequence 2048 by 1080. I'm going to go ahead and change that. So I'm going to go to sequence, sequence settings. Actually, I have to have the sequence selected and then go to sequence settings. And let's just change it to 1920, 1080. I'm not going to go over all the standard video sizes right now. We're just going to build it in regular 16 by 9, 1920, 1080. And you can see now that my shot fills up the frame a little better. Okay, so I'm going to edit this and talk about it the whole way I go. So this shot here, I don't want it to be 4 seconds. I want it to be closer to 2. So I'm going to speed it up. There's a couple ways to speed it up. The way I'm going to do it is I'm going to right click on it and go to speed and duration and tell it to run at 200%. And here it's showing me it shortened the duration to 217. I'm going to say okay. So now that shot runs faster. There's a gap right there. And now this shot, same thing. Let's speed her up. If I double click on this shot, it opens that shot in the source panel, which that's one thing to notice. So this shot here, when I double click it, opens in the source panel, there's the in and outs, is different than this shot. If I double click on this shot, it opens it up in the source panel and it's showing the same in and out. Yet if I look here, source, woman standing on beach is this. If I double click this shot and it opens it up in the source panel, it's saying source, Woodbridge over river. That's the name of our sequence. We don't want that because we made our sequence out of those clips. It just copied the name from the first clip. So we don't want that, and we want to put it in the proper place. So I'm going to back up for a second, go to my project panel, and I can see here in my stock footage bin, there's a sequence which has this different icon. That's telling me this right here is the edit sequence. This is not one of my pieces of footage, it's an edit sequence. So I'm going to just click it by the icon and move it to my edits bin. And then I'm going to go in there and look at my edits bin. I'll just leave all those. In fact, I'm just going to get rid of those for now. I organize all my edits and all my work in bins and folders just to stay organized. Because if all I want to do is spend time on the creative part, not the organization. So I make myself organized. And I know that everyone does this, and Cornelius has his method and all that. But, you know, in video takes up so much data, you know, because it's, for example, 30 frames a second, where Photoshop's, that's one frame, really. So it's a less amount of data. So I'll just break out on this for a second here. So like here, these are my mobile projects that I keep in Dropbox. You can see here, every one of these projects, 0594, the mission, that's my client, and green card, Takis, VFX shoot, right? Gizmo Cartwriter, DTV, DirecTV, this is the one I'm working on now. DirecTV TK, which is Travis Kelce, he's an NFL tight end. I'm doing some social media for DirecTV that shows Travis Kelce and another football player, and they're introducing NFL Sunday Ticket on DirecTV. Anyway, so these are my mobile projects. So everything for that project, I keep in a project folder. And they usually don't live on Dropbox, like right here. They live on 2 external hard drives. So I don't work even on my Mac without utilizing 3 drives all the time for video work. So I have the system drive that I'm running the Premiere on, and then I have the media drive where I'm storing all the media. And then I have a cache drive where all the cache frames are going. There's no other way to do it. If I was to get offered a job, hey, here's your computer you're going to edit with, there's only 1 drive you can use. Well, then I'm not taking the job because I can't do my job. So this is an important thing. So I have these 2, I don't think you can see them in my video here. I have 2 external drives attached right here, media and cache, that I use with every project that I work with Premiere and After Effects. Because as you know, if I do a couple projects and there's a whole bunch of video, well, that project might be 200 gigs. Well, I can't have that living on my system, especially on my laptop, unless I'm set up for it. Okay, enough about that, but I can't do any presentation without talking about organization. Okay, so we'll do the same thing in her. We'll speed her up. Same thing, I'm going to right click and go to speed and duration, and I'll make her 200% as well, enter. And now I can either, in the timeline, I can grab clips and slide them. You can also select like a gap and hit delete, and it sort of ripple edits everything. I'm going to get rid of this audio.
Question, if you didn't delete those gaps, how would they display? Would they be blank on the screen?
Yeah, so it'd be like this, like I'm playing back, there's that shot, and then there's this shot, And then we'll see here when it gets just black.
Oh, it's a black screen.
And it's actually, it actually has a transparent if you were rendering it with the alpha channel. Oh, it should be. Huh. That's weird. Okay, I'm not gonna worry about that. So I'll delete that. And I'm gonna get rid of this audio here. So one thing in Premiere, right here, this is linked selection is turned on. So if I click on, if I select a clip, it selects both the audio and video, which are attached or connected together.
In a synchronized way.
Yeah, exactly. And if I have that switch off, then I can click either one independently. But most of the time, I just leave it on and I need to select this audio independently. So if I hold down Alt or Option, I can click and select that independently and just hit the delete key. And make it go away. Okay. So, and you know, one of the things I really want to show in this lesson today in the next 20 minutes is keyframing, because keyframes, they, once you know them, like once say I learn, I know I'm comfortable with keyframes in Premiere, well, then they work the same in everything else. They are in the same shape, even work the same in DaVinci Resolve or in After Effects or in Final Cut Pro, or, you know, once you get and understand or get acclimated to keyframe use, then you're going to know it regardless of what programmer you're in that uses keyframes. So here's what I did. On this other stock footage bin, what I want to look at now is actually in the footage bin, I made there's a light leaks, right? And if you double click any of these, I'll open over here in the source panel. So I'm going to composite these light leaks over this summer footage, we're calling it. So, and I'll just do that. I'm just going to drag them down here so they're over the top of this footage. Something like this. I'll go ahead and do this one too, just so it's on the whole thing. So now the way to composite these, and these are the same compositing modes that are in Photoshop and everything else. So I have this one selected, this little blue one here. And so I have the effects controls panel open. So in the effects controls panel, any clip that you have selected, you have transform properties, right? Which are, you know, left and right or up and down and scale. I'm going to reset both of those. Actually, if I double click on a clip and I get this blue bounding box, I can see it also highlights motion. That means now I can just click and drag this clip. And here I see the numbers changing.
You're dragging, changing its position on the screen.
Yeah. And so you can do that. These transform controls come with every layer. One thing I want to do is down here under opacity, there's a blend mode. And right now it's in normal. If I click on that, maybe you've seen these blend modes before because they're the same in Photoshop and After Effects and everything else. There's two for compositing things that have black or lights or smoke or clouds. Basically eliminates and puts video or transparency where all the black is.
So would that allow you to do what in film is called a fade from one clip to another?
Well, no, that would be a transition effect.
Oh, okay.
Crossfade. So I'm going to choose linear dodge, which is add. So now that light is there, but over the footage. So that's kind of cool. So I'm going to do that. And that happens in the opacity property. So if I select the opacity property on this clip that I just changed the linear dodge and I copy it with Control Command C and select all of my light leak footage and then paste it. So now all of them are keyed over with that same, no matter which one I select, you can see it's got opacity, blend mode, linear dodge. Okay, so that's what it does, and it's kind of cool. That's fine. I'm gonna go ahead and
I-
just,
Could you see having a similar effect like that throughout a film to sort of be a artistic signature?
oh, it's, yeah, this is so contemporary. That's why I do this lesson. It happens all the time. It'll be like,
Uh-huh.
our video is boring, and then you put a bunch of this on it, and it kind of sometimes livens it up. Or, you know,
Mhm.
I did this video for a dry needler. You know, she's a physical therapist, dry needler for athletes. So
Mhm.
her whole thing was when they come to me, they're healing. It's like they're going into the light. So we had all these white backgrounds. We put lens flares over everything. The whole thing was like going into the light. I thought you said don't go into the light. Sorry. Okay, so I wanted to show this big thing. We're going to make a giant word up here, summer, going across the screen with keyframes. So let's do that. And we're going to just walk through, you know, I should probably turn this into 2 lessons because this essential graphics in After Effects or in Premiere, it's complex, but you can do so much as a great tool, you know. Almost really gone are the days of, now I'm an After Effects artist, that's what I do. But the way you can do graphics and modify and animate and make them look in Premiere now is like, you don't really, you know, if you don't know After Effects, you don't need it. You can do amazing stuff. So I'm gonna do something quickly here though. I'm gonna make a giant word summer animating across the top of this footage. And then I'm gonna do a certain trick with it to key the footage inside of it. But so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go, this is gonna be quick, where I'm gonna, cause I do have to leave at 7. I'm gonna go to my text tool and just come up in my program monitor. I can see how the text cursor, I'm gonna click once. And I'll type the word summer. Now, one thing with the text tool is that it defaults to the last font and size that you used. So I practiced this earlier, and that's why it's that size. And I'm going to go ahead, and this is my graphic element that it makes when you make text. And the way you really dig into that is to look at it in the essential graphics panel. I could go to Window and call up the essential graphics panel. Or I could go to the graphics workspace, but I don't. That rearranges everything. You know, now this is over. Now where's my, now my tools are up here. So I don't like to switch workspaces too much. I'll just add panels to my workspace, you know, as I'm working. But if I just double click on this graphics panel, then it'll also open up the essential graphics panel. Okay, so my Premiere just crashed. Oh, let's bring it back up. I don't know what we're going to lose. As you might know, there's an auto save for all these tools, and it saves, I think the default is every 15 minutes. Yeah. Okay, so we didn't lose too much. So that's nice, tries to help us out. So let's go ahead and do this, and I'll talk about keyframes here real quick. Okay, summer, and we need our graphics panel. So I'm going to double click here, call it the graphics panel. That's great. And it's a little bit redundant. So effects controls and graphics panel do the same sort of thing. The only difference is in the graphics panel, you can't really see the keyframes. So I work together with Essential Graphics and Effects Controls to do animation things on my text layers. So I have this text layer selected, which is the summer one. And I actually want to make it larger. And I can see here the anchor points right here, because I don't have it justified to the center. So I'm just going to justify it to the center because I want my anchor point somewhere in the middle. I'm not going to actually kind of put it in the middle. just so I can make this larger. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to place this, and I can see the position properties are changing right here. That layer selected. Here's the position property. It's moving. If I look over here, not in vector motion, but under my text properties, not the source text, but the transform properties from summer, text summer. Same thing here, summer. If I move this around, I'm going to place it right here. These are the properties where it is, X position and Y position. And you see they're the same right here, X position and Y position. So I can turn on keyframing or activate it by either clicking this stopwatch. You can see there when I hover over it, it says toggle animation. Or if I hover over this position property here, I can also toggle the animation on. Either one of those does exactly the same thing. So I'm just going to click this one right here. And so what it's telling me is at this time, it's going to be at this position, X and Y. Keyframes are temporal and spatial. What position, what time? That all matters. Where am I at in time? So I'm going to go down to the end of this clip. And let's go back one frame. So that's my last frame. And I'm going to move the X property. So my summer is like over here. And I did that by hovering over the X property number to move. And if you see, it made a new keyframe there. So now at 0 frames, or the first frame, it's telling it to be positioned here. And in the last frame, it's telling it to be positioned there. So it's going to animate between those two. If I wanted it to be faster, I could just highlight the second keyframe and move it here. And so now it's going to happen much faster. All right. Okay, I'm going to leave it out here for now. So here's one thing. I'll just talk about this real fast, and then I'm going to jump to the next thing. You know, if I wanted to change where it starts, maybe I want summer to be all the way off to the right on this first frame, not partly on the screen. But what people think sometimes, oh, I'll just highlight that keyframe, I'll select it, and then I can modify those properties. But that's not what it does. The properties are relative to where your playhead is, not what's selected. So it made a new keyframe, which I don't want. So for me to modify any of these keyframes, I have to actually have the playhead right on it. And I can tell it's on it because the little keyframe icon there is blue. But so here's the cool thing about this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that's good. I'm actually going to close my Essential Graphics panel. I can always open it later if I want. Also, one cool thing, any of these panels, if you hit the tilde key, which is the squiggly line key in the top left, it'll make that panel full screen so I can sort of watch my work full screen if I need to. Or if I have a whole bunch of properties and I'm having trouble seeing them all, I can just hover my mouse over this panel, hit the tilde key, and there now I can see all my properties and parameters. But so here's what we're going to do. I want to put all that footage inside the letters. So here's how we're going to do that. This whole group, this is 2 layers. I'm going to nest, what Premiere calls it, these 2 video track layers in this sequence. And all that, a nest is really a verb that means make a new sequence. So I'm going to select all these. And I'm going to right click and say nest, which means make sequence. Nest, and I'll call this summer edit with flares. Okay, good and descriptive. And I'll say okay. And it may, you see here, it made a new sequence, which is this sequence now. Summer edit with flares is now just 1 layer in here, but it's actually a sequence. If I double clicked on it, it would open it up and there's all my original shots and edits. But now that's feeding this sequence, which I'm going to drag this sequence up to our edits. I'm going to twirl up my edits and I'm going to rename this to summer text animation. So this is my final edit right here. And I'm gonna drag the words down and just put them on top. So here's what we're gonna do. There's an effect called, over here, I'm gonna go to effects, which is another panel. Shows me all the effects in Premiere. I'm gonna go to this shot and I wanna put I made my own little panel or a folder of effects here called John Faves. And there's one here called track matte key. So I'm going to take track matte key and put it in my summer edit. And here it is right here. And I'm going to tell it to use video track 2 as the hole cutter on this layer. So now when I watch this playback, all that edit work and flares are inside of that animating text. So it has sort of a cool look to it. We could also, if we wanted to put more over it, we could, we could add more layers of these leaks right over the top of that as well. So be both inside the text and overall over the whole thing. Let's do screen on this one. Right, so it gives it kind of a cool look. So that, that's supposed to be the main thing of this lesson is the track matte effect and keyframes, a little bit of essential graphics. I think we did an essential graphics lesson previously, but we can do it again as well. Okay. So that's fun. Track matte key. It's awesome. Everyone loves it. Is there any questions?
Now, why did you drag the track matte on the bottom layer instead of top layer? I think I'm used to you putting it on the top. I mean, I guess
yeah,
that's in Camtasia and in other programs.
Yeah, well, what it's telling, it goes on the video because it's telling it to use these instructions to cut a hole in this video.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all, and to me, like even Photoshop and After Effects are backwards. Clipping mask, it works kind of different. Now you can put it on any layer in After Effects. It used to have to be the layer above it. Now you can just use any layer, but which I've been doing on my other project. It gets confusing though sometimes. But what's cool is I can use the same. Now I can use the same alpha or luminance layer to cut holes in several layers versus used to just be one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but so. Yeah. So that's fun. It's all that is. And doing this a few times helps you also with understanding how templates are built. Because more and more people that, especially that are getting into this, it's like, why should I spend a day reinventing the wheel when I can go get a template and then modify it to be what I want? Or, it has a better lower third design. And so, but doing this yourself and knowing how these works, then it helps you, dissect and modify templates. Same kind of thing in After Effects. People will go, I'll just buy an After Effects template. I'm like, okay, but unless you know After Effects, you're not going to be able to, figure it out.
John, Sherry's raised a question in the chat room about presentation interface. She says she's having trouble knowing where here is whenever the word here is said. And she's asking if you could make the cursor larger. And I know Cornelius has done that after I begged him to. I forget how it's done though.
You go to the display mode or do Apple system. Go to your Apple icon up at the top. and go to system settings. It's under,
Oh, keyboard maybe?
I think it's under accessibility.
Oh, okay.
ACC.
Yeah. And then done a display. I think click on display, I believe. And then pointer right there. See the one that right there. There you go. And you
Oh,
can
now
change
you
the
have a
color
big
too.
cursor.
And you can change the color.
Oh, all fancy. Okay, cool. Okay,
Great, thank you.
yeah, that's cool. I wish there was a way to I'll look into that. There might be a preference on how big these are.
That might be under a general setting. If you do file general, I don't know if there's any general settings. And under, let's see what that would be. Appearance, the second one from the top on the left menu. Go to appearance and let's see, that's brightness. No. Thought maybe it would be under there.
Oh well, I'll look later because this comes up
Quite a
since
lot.
yeah. So maybe there's a way to, because none of us want to have our face against the screen and still squinting,
Mm-hmm. Sherry seems to think it's part of Zoom support. I did a Google search for that and could not find it.
Yeah. I don't know. This stuff, I mean, I could play with this all day. Maybe. Okay. Well, that's cool. And I use other edit programs as well. I use DaVinci Resolve. I just did a couple of videos where I use that. But
What's the difference?
it's just a different, it's a different program. There's a different editor, and there's a few, and some of the old school film editors still all use Avid. A lot of film schools still teach on Avid, some on Premiere. People
Yeah,
are
I've been around a long time.
My problem is, well, my thing is I'm not switching from one to the other. I'm using them all because like the captions and the text in Premiere just is so far superior to captions in Resolve. So I might do a creative edit in Resolve, but I'll come into Premiere to do all the captioning.
What about Final Cut? Do you use Final Cut?
Well, like everybody else that I know anyway, when it went from Final Cut 7 to Final Cut 10, which is like 10 years ago, I left Final Cut. Also for me, I don't like programs that only run on one platform. It's only on PCs. It's only on Macs. Okay,
Right.
then that's going to screw me up, especially when you're teaching and you're teaching to both and all, so now, but with that said, because I make a lot of personal videos or I have for my kids and all that. And usually they're just slideshows or with a Ken Burns effect, or I get a little fancier on my kids' ones. But sometimes relatives will say, hey, if I give you a bunch of pictures, can you make a video for Timmy or whoever? And dude, I'll use I'll use iMovie just because it's so fast. I can do Ken Burns effects custom on every picture really fast. And so I'll use whatever tool it is that is the most efficient for what I'm doing.
Right.
Although, what happens often with all this is we get really efficient in one tool. So, I'll go in there and use that instead of, which I do all the time. I'll go into After Effects and do something that I could have easily done in Photoshop, but I know After Effects so much better that I can just be faster.
Right.
Yeah, and so that's what I wanted to do. There's also a couple of is it Filmora? There's a couple of the less expensive editor tools as well. Premiere is really strong though. I have to say that. So we could do, I mean, we could do, that's what we should do after your generative fill. I'll do another thing where we take some of those footages and maybe cut them apart, or, you know, I just did a video where I made all the, you know, I made clean plates in, did I show that in one of these? And then, and I made clean plates in Photoshop and then did a, you know, camera zoom in After Effects where it made it look like it's 3D because I separated all the layers in Z space. That's fun. I love teaching that. You know, now also I have it next week, especially for training, you know, 360. I teach 360 almost once a month.
Now, what is 360? Is that a program?
No, the you know, 360 videos, how to make them, how to edit,
okay.
how to post in them, how to shoot them, the whole thing. Because it's another, it's a lot of data and it's slower and it takes a certain recipe. And Ramon and I are getting better at it now because we've done it so much. But yeah, it's a thing. We could also maybe do a lesson later on that, or just walk through. Here's the approach to 360. It's kind of weird to take certain tools because essentially you're in a sphere. So if I put a graphic on there that's flat, it's not going to fit or look right in the sphere. So you have to put an effect on it. It's called a plane to sphere effect. And the way you render out and all that from Premiere is different. So we'll do that at some point too, I think. Okay. Well, that's really kind of it for me. See, no, escape. Yeah. Well, I hope that was inspiring a little, maybe.
It was. It was.
Okay. Yeah. It's hard not to like these tools. Well, what else? Karen?
I have no questions.
Okay.
It's been great. You make it look really easy. All you need is 3 drives.
Well, that just helps. Yeah, that's a thing. And they, I should have shown that too. You know, it's an easy Google. There's a Adobe required specifications page for After Effects and Premiere that sort of both for Mac and PCs. This kind of lays out the, you know, the best way to do things. And that's on there. Have a separate drive for this, have a separate drive for that. Because, you know, if it's all on the same drive and you're crossing streams, it's trying to read the program and read the media and record media. And it's just it's bottlenecking that data. And it's gonna, you know, my joke that I always say is it makes me want to punch myself in the face because I just want to work.
Now, do you have SD drives or those the old standard hard drives?
Oh, these two both are SSD drives.
Okay.
Yeah. And they're can you,
Those are really expensive compared to
both
drive.
these are like $80 or something.
What size?
The one's terabyte, one's 500 gig, one's a terabyte. I'm just gonna eject them or try to and see if I can, so I can show you on the camera here. Yeah, I got them taped together. Let me go back to Zoom. So I have these 2 drives, right? They're both, one's a Samsung, one's a SanDisk. They're just taped, they're rubber banded together. So that's my media drive and my cache drive for when I'm doing work on my
Now, when you say cache drive, what are you referring to?
laptop. So in both Premiere and After Effects, to play back smooth, it'll cache or render the frames. And that's why, let me go back to Premiere real quick. Let's see.
So you could define those drive for as the cache drive for Premiere and After Effects. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, exactly. So this little line here is telling me, this yellow line, it's
Mhm.
saying that oh, everything's fine. I can probably pay back real time without dropping frames. There, it just dropped a frame. So this is either red, yellow, or green.
Right.
When it's green, everything's actually cached, and I can tell Premiere if I go up into sequence, I can say render entire work area. So what that's doing right now is it's making cached files. So, and now you see that line's green and it's all playing back smooth and perfect because it literally rendered those frames to my cache drive. And so it's playing them back from there just so we can see them. If I change something, that green's going to go away.
Now, how do you define the cache drive? You do for the
Oh.
cache.
That's good. So if I go to my project settings, and then there's one down here called media cache. And then, oh, so I didn't even, on this project, I don't even have it assigned over there. So you go to media cache and then your location for your cache, right? Which I'm going to call in here, and I have Premiere Pro cache. Choose. You can also in here delete all the old cache files that you're not using,
Right.
which
That's
I
cool.
do often because they can sometimes get corrupt and all that. And sometimes that'll take a minute, but I'll go ahead and do that. But yeah, so you can, it's in preferences under media cache. Where am I going to cache my material?
Right. That's cool.
And I must have had a bunch of stuff in there. It's taking so long to
That's like my delete folder file. Probably got a boatload of stuff in there.
yeah. Yeah, that's sort of, I'm the same, like trash is like my temporary hold place. Oh, yeah, it's still going. Okay. Cool. Yeah, so that's it. I mean, because of all that stuff, like I don't trust After Effects and Premiere. They crash, they lock up all the time when I'm working. I'm rebooting, restarting a couple. Rarely do I make it through a day without doing that at least once. Like Adobe Audition, I don't ever have any problems. I think it's the most solid Adobe program there is. No, I just think that because it works so well and fast, and mainly it's because audio doesn't take up a whole bunch of data the way video does.
Right.
Or at least that's my take on it. But yeah, but these are awesome tools. Okay, well, that's it.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, yay. Thank
Oh,
you, John.
yeah, no, I'm looking forward to the next one too, with Cornelius and the generative.
Yeah, that's some cool stuff. I'm excited about doing my research on it. As soon as I kind of look through some YouTube videos, I'm gonna send you a write up on it.
Thank you.
Well, next
Thank
meeting.
you.
It may be a while, but
Soon-
we got
soon-
2 months, so
Right, but I want the website to look current and not talking
Okay.
about just the last meeting. But I
Okay.
will, as soon as I get the video, probably tomorrow, I'll put that up on the website.
Okay.
And when I have your announcement for September, I'll send out news saying that we're skipping August, and then I'll send another announcement in September, and a set of announcements in September.
Okay.
So
Good.
see you in September.
When do you come back?
I'll be coming to Virginia. I'm running up against the Schengen countries, 27 countries in Europe, have this agreement that American tourists can't stay here more than 90 days. They're very
Oh,
strict
that?
about that. So
Oh.
I'm gonna go to Virginia, where I have a property that I'm managing. I'll go there for a month to Yogaville, Virginia in late August, and I'll be back probably the end of September. So I'll be joining you on Zoom from Yogaville, Virginia.
Yogaville.
Yogaville, check it
Yogaville.
up, yogaville.org.
Oh, wow. I will.
It's a wonderful place about an hour south of Charlottesville. It's a community of people practicing yoga surrounding Satchidananda Ashram.
Oh, wow, cool.
Yeah,
have a-
and they have,
That's interesting.
there's a landmark there called Lotus. There's a website I originally built at lotus.org. Somebody has rethemed it, but it's a fascinating place. And I got somebody to do a 3D tour of the whole place that's still on the website. A virtual tour, so you can walk through the grounds.
That's interesting.
Oh,
Yeah, I'll
is
put-
so that's 360 then,
Yes,
right? Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's where I think that's the biggest use of that is like 3D tours or, real estate is a
real
big,
estate is huge.
yeah. And
Yeah, the man who did that makes most of his money showing restaurants, 3D tours of restaurants.
huh. Yeah, that's cool. The way technology and cameras are now, it's just
I know.
amazing.
All right, you guys, I need to run.
Okay, me too.
Okay, thank you all
Well,
very
not
much.
run, but go.
And Sherry, I'll just say, Sherry's begging that we please fix the GUI text size before the next meeting. And I have gone into Zoom directions, instructions myself and searched for that, and I don't find a solution. So if Sherry can help me figure it out before September 14th,
great.
we'll have it by then.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I had that in my notes too.
Yeah, we can make the chat text bigger, but that doesn't make the shared
Right.
screen text bigger. Ask AI chat box. Yeah, I understand that we want the shared screen text to be larger. Zoom chat bot. Can try that. Okay, I think we should probably, I'm going to stop the recording.